My name's Dan. I'm one of the directors of LandApp, and I'm here to talk today about a kind of side product that we've been building within the LandApp ecosystem that we call nature, risk, or resilience reporting. And this is really a tool that we initially built to support a couple of retailers. So it was about 3 years ago we started working with Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's and said, look, we can start to support your farmers in a more cohesive way through the LandApp ecosystem. And since we've got I guess a lot of traction through some other supply chains, including processors and, of course, landscape recovery projects as well. So yeah, I'm very much going to spend the first 10 minutes talking a bit about what that product is within the LandApp ecosystem. And then I'm going to do two case studies, one of a beef farmer up in Yorkshire and one of a root veg farmer here in Norfolk. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you have a bit more understanding, not only what LandApp can support with, but also this new nature reporting system that we've built. So where is LandApp today? So I joined them 5 years ago. It's been going since 2017, and it's used by a wide range of stakeholders in the land sector, many of whom are here today, so it's good to see some familiar faces. We've got approximately 10 million hectares of land mapped now across Britain, and that's through our network of partners, farmers, foresters, environmental NGOs, government agencies are now using it, retailers are using it, and I guess the land agency firms still are our bread and butter in terms of our biggest user base. But we're really seeing in the last couple of years farmers really wanting to take more ownership of their data and take control of the maps that are being created. Within that, it's about 40,000 users, and the stats are still remaining. About 7,000 people are logging in multiple times each month regularly. So that's kind of one of our key metrics, is how useful are we to that day-to-day job or that month-to-month job. And what is it? It's a easy-to-use mapping platform that's found at thelandapp.com, and it ultimately puts the right data in the hands of the right people for them to be able to connect with one another. So we've built a very powerful collaborative platform that allows you to add one another to the same map. So you're not having to share PDFs with one another. You could all work off the same source of truth. And we're ultimately there to help people make decisions. We're helping people understand what their opportunities are, what their risks are, and provide the data in a way that allows that land manager or the advisor supporting that land manager to make those decisions for good. We're not here to tell the landowner what they should do. We're just here to support and provide them with ideas on what they could do. And one of our fundamental principles, and I've just put a little logos at the bottom left, is we're under the farm data principles. It's a relatively new group of data providers and tool providers that have signed up to the same standards around data ownership. So fundamentally, we believe that farmers should own their own data, they should have control over their own data, and they should have very clear transparency about how that data is being used. And we hold ourselves to those principles as much as we can. And really excited to see where that goes in the future. And we're built on industry tech, although on Monday this week, AWS did go down, which didn't actually affect LandApp as much as we thought it would. It was our payment system that went down, but the rest was unaffected, which was quite good to see, although definitely some deep dives are happening behind the scenes. So nature reporting is fundamentally built under the principle of nature equals resilience. And particularly when we're speaking to supermarkets and retailers, the more we can get their C-suite and people making decisions to understand that nature is fundamental to their resilience, the more we're going to see investment come to farmers. Not everyone cares about nature, which is frank but true, but everyone cares about resilience. So the more that we can synonymize these two words, the more that we can start bringing more funding to support nature restoration, nature recovery, but also bring resilience to farming businesses. And so the tool that we've built within the LandApp ecosystem fundamentally tries to promote that, mainly following the Lawton Report's principles of bigger, better, more, and joined up. And so we've created a suite of metrics that allow farmers to understand at their farm level how well they're doing around creating more habitats, creating more a better condition habitats, and connecting them up. And we're really trying to ensure that those farmers are putting the right thing in the right place by providing them with data and by providing them with metrics. And so, in essence, what do we do within this nature reporting system? So to start with, what we do is we help every farmer create a baseline, and that baseline contains existing habitat assets following the DEFRA metric that you just heard about, to build an understanding of what's currently there. You know, how much grassland have you got, cropland have you got, what type of grasslands are they, what condition are they in. And we've got basically an algorithm that can do part of that. We can provide a best guess, but we provide it in a way that's then editable through the Land app, either through the mobile app or on the desktop, for people to then confirm and amend and improve the quality of that baseline. We then support every farm who wants to build something called a land management plan, which is their future ideas. And this is just a secondarily map that shows ideas with no time horizon on them. This is just, hey farmers, please just draw on the map all the weird and wonderful ideas that you've got for your farm. This is a non-committal map, just where would you like to see a pond, where would you like to try agroforestry, where are you interested in a shelter belt. And this just allows a safe space for a farmer to draw all their ideas on a map. But those ideas on a map allow us to quantify a number of things. One of them is future value. So we can start to quantify what if every single one of those features on the right hand side were implemented, that pond was restored, that agroforestry is implemented. But where you can also see the uplift as well. If that farmer did go from that baseline, which is on the left, to that land management plan on the right, what unit uplift would we see, whether that's in the language of biodiversity net gain or across those other metrics that I've just touched on, connectivity, habitat cover, etc. And this is fundamentally what all the supermarkets want to see. All the supermarkets now are asking farmers to start thinking about their farm's future, not only about the productive system that's happening, but also the context of that food production. Is it being grown in a more resilient landscape? Are you introducing habitats that's going to shelter your livestock and improve their welfare, or buffer strips and ponds that are going to prevent flooding? And those scores allow us to, one, tell the farmer how well they're doing. This is a really nice way of us quantifying the story that the farmer has always been trying to say. I've been in stewardship for the last 20 years. How do I quantify the great things I'm already doing? These plans can also support grant applications. So we've, having conversations with both the retailers and other private markets, but also the public schemes, as and when they become open. These plans provide a fundamental building block to those schemes. That data can be shared with advisors, so you can collaborate very easily about your ideas. By getting it on a map, it removes a lot of nuance. I want to plant a hedge in that field on the left-hand side is much harder to articulate than just drawing it on a map and sharing it with your friends and family. And then also, there's a number of landscape recovery projects that are following this exact methodology. And DEFRA actually told us the other week that 66% of all landscape recovery projects are using LandApp at the moment. So there's a lot of projects already out there that have drawn on the system this structure. What's currently happening in a baseline habitat assessment, and what are the ideas in that future view, all of which is underpinned by that habitat classification of UK HAB. And so that's kind of the fundamental building blocks of our nature reporting system. It's kind of draw on a map what's currently there and what could be there in the future. And that allows us to calculate over 70 metrics now. I'm not going to go through every one of the metrics, but I'm just going to highlight 6 of them that really resonate with farmers, because that will feed into my case studies. The first and obvious one is that, bigger, more of them. It's just habitat percentage cover. So what percentage of your farming business is dedicated to biodiversity positive habitats? And those are habitats that primarily contribute to nature restoration. So that includes obviously your native woodlands and your species-rich grasslands, but it also includes floristically rich temporary grasses, so herbal lays, for example, and also the more permanent arable features like beetle banks and arable margins. The second one is connectedness, so we can automatically calculate how connected those different habitats are within the farming system, and that's looking about what proportion of those biodiversity positive habitats are connected to the largest node, and that obviously helps species move through your farm and wider into the landscape. We then look at one called core to edge ratio. And so there was a paper released in 2016 by the Centre of Ecology and Hydrology that says roughly 45 meters is the spillover of beneficial pest predators into your crop or into your productive grasslands. And so what we're trying to promote with farmers is trying to make as much of their productive land within 45 meters of a semi-natural habitat. And so agroforestry, for example, or a beetle bank really skyrockets this score. It's not about taking areas completely out of production. It's about trying to intertwine habitats within your productive system. We then look at productive land within 12 meters of a watercourse, and this is a score that we're trying to get people to reduce. Can we get as much land as possible buffering watercourses to protect the flowing water that's going through the land? Hedgerow length, obvious one, just how many meters? I think we're doing kilometers now. How many kilometers of hedge are on your farm? And then the final one that I wanted to highlight is just winter cover percentage. Once we've got a farm mapped, satellites now can very quickly see whether your farm is or is not using winter cover. And so we basically check over the last 5 years for any arable fields between the months of November and January, what proportion of those arable fields were using winter cover. And that's not just saying winter cover crops, that's saying any green cover, because we want to avoid seeing brown fields between November and January. We want to make sure that we've got at least some continuous root supporting that soil and staying it, keeping it from running off into rivers. So those are kind of the key 6 metrics. If you want to hear about all the other metrics and properly nerd out with me, we're at stand 53 in the corner. Do come say hello. I'd be more than happy to talk through the other metrics as well. But these 6 just really feed into the case studies that I'm just about to share. Before I do, just to note, on our website, thelandapp.com, we've got a whole case study page. There's more coming out, so if you're interested and want to read them, there's some short, what we call coffee break blogs, which are just 2 or 3 minutes of reading, and then we've also got some more in-depth ones that you can dive into, and they cover everything from estate management, glasshouse production, and the beef farmer on the right is the one that I'm just about to dive into now. So we're basically at the moment working with Waitrose to try and map 100% of their British supply chain. And I'm just highlighting for the next 10 minutes just 2 case studies that have come out of that relationship with Waitrose, just to kind of articulate some of the great things that's being supported. And it's worth saying within the Waitrose contract, what we're trying to do is help them write a state of nature report. It's trying to understand how many fields, how many hectares, how many, what percentage habitat cover is part of the farming businesses that supply Waitrose. Throughout that entire project, the farmer is remaining anonymous to Waitrose. We are acting as an independent intermediary to try and support them understanding their extent without that data protection point being questioned. So first farmer is Richard Barker. He's a Yorkshire beef farmer who's part of the Waitrose supply chain. And the testimonial he gave is, we've been working hard to change practices, but never really had a good understanding of how much we were improving and making a positive impact. The report from LandApp delivered all of this data. And so Richard spoke to one of our accredited professionals, which is just a network of advisors that we kind of put in the middle of us and the farmers. And they firstly started off by building their baseline. So just a quick highlight reel, I suppose. It's 116 hectares. 28% of it was already in a herb-rich ley. There's just about 12 kilometres of hedges. Every field has a hedgerow around it. And it's got already integrated diverse margins. It's already buffering all its watercourses. So to be honest, this farmer's in a really good place. But during that conversation, the farmer said, we have got one field that's a real issue, and that field waterlogs all the time. We're trying to, winter some livestock in there. How do we ensure that we reduce that waterlogging and also ensure that any protection? So within the LandApp system, the advisor and the farmer ran one of our tools called Wetlandscapes that we built in partnership with a number of organisations here. And what that does, it ultimately looks at the LiDAR data, it looks at flood data, it looks at overland flow data, and it basically just by sat in your office, you can at least see where the satellites are detecting water sitting and water flowing. The advisor then, with Richard, spent a bit of time to doodle on a map, just one of those fields going into agroforestry and introducing some wetland scrapes down to the southeast, which included these 24-metre alleys, some more scrub, looking at flower-rich margins as well, and some extra tree alleys to try and protect that water running into that one field. Once he had completed that design, LandApp actually notified Richard to say, Waitrose have just opened a pot of money. It's £500,000. Would you like to apply? And Richard actually managed to get awarded £45,000 to turn that plan into reality. The plan's updated since what I last seen. But what Waitrose are interested in was the scores. Like, if we do fund Richard with that plan, obviously there's the qualitative data, which is Richard wants to see a reduction in waterlogging. But for Waitrose, how do we quantify the impact that we've just had with that plan? So what Waitrose managed to see is an uplift of 10% habitat cover within their 116 hectare farm. No change to the connectivity, but also Richard saw an increase of 14% in his core-to-edge ratio. So a 14% increase in his integrated pest management potential. And so what that's a demonstration of is that Waitrose are obviously interested in resilience, but they need a way of quantifying it as well. And that's where LandApp's supporting, is those ideas becoming a reality through a good quantification of a plan. The second one is Chris Negus, who might be in the room, if you are, hi, from Burgess Farms, who's a root veg farmer within the Houghton estate. And Chris says, The Farming for Nature project from Waitrose is such an exciting initiative. The support I received to create a land management plan through LandApp has been a game changer. It's helped me take a closer look on how I can balance production with protecting and improving the environment, even on tenanted land. And so Chris is in a position where he doesn't have full management control over his farm, but what he uses LandApp for is a way of articulating with the landlord his ideas and trying to find that harmony between what they're trying to achieve and what the landlord's trying to achieve. And so just again, some highlight reels. Part of the tenant estate is tenanting 123 hectares, producing fresh produce and root veg, and is really farming in high density nature corridors already. Houghton are doing a lot of margins. And they're really just trying to build those longer term life cycles, because when you're growing root veg, you're not in the same field every year. You're coming back to it after 5, 7, 8 years. And so just some high level scores, even though it's on tenanted land, the land in which Chris is growing food on is 18% habitat cover. So it's well over the 10% that a lot of farmers are aiming for. 39% of it is connected. We're saying 90% of all arable fields are in winter cover at the moment, which is one of the highest scores I've seen, which is great to see. And 0% of the land is 12 metres from 0% of the productive land is within 12 metres of a watercourse, which means on this estate where it's currently being tenanted, 100% of the rivers are being protected. And it's that type of metrics that Waitrose really wants to see. So actually in their eyes, we're not actually applying for any additional funding for Chris here. We're just wanting the status quo to continue. How do we ensure that landlord relationship allows the tenant to continue growing good quality root veg in an ecosystem that is supporting nature, is improving connectivity, and is protecting the watercourses? So I think that's all I have time for. And thank you so much. And we're on stand 53 if you want to talk about any of that in more detail. Thank you very much.
Dan, thank you very much.